We're back. Important. Sami Hamdi. Go and give him a follow. I watched this and I thought I've got to share it. I'll keep my opinions to the end. I'll try and make a few notes, but here we go.
More and more obvious that Israel's not taking priority. There is an MOU. It is being implemented. JD Vance is doing the tours talking about it, how it's a great MOU, criticizing people that are against it. The Israelis say they haven't even received the MOU. Trump's popularity in Israel dropped from 68% to 38%, something along those lines, after the MOU was signed. Putting all these together, the tide is already shifting. Isn't it pretty obvious that things are shifting against Israel, or you think there's still a lot of room for everything to kind of fall apart?
I think at the moment the tide is shifting dramatically against the Israelis. But for example, 3 hours before we've started this live stream, the Israelis have hit Lebanon. After Trump yesterday at the G7 kept criticizing the Israelis that you don't need to keep bombing all these apartment blocks to go after Hezbollah, criticizing the way that they're conducting themselves in Lebanon. And if you remember the previous time there was a ceasefire, Mario, when Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif announced it, he said that we've done a ceasefire. This is not this MOU, the one before. And then the Israelis went and said, okay, but Lebanon's not included, and they attacked Lebanon. Then the Pakistani Prime Minister, who had sat with Kushner, with Witkoff, with JD Vance, said, no, Lebanon is included. That is what we agreed. And Donald Trump went from affirming it to saying, making it iffy, giving it ambiguity, ceding to the Israelis that Lebanon will not be part of it. And it took the Iranians firing missiles at Tel Aviv to tell Donald Trump, Mr. Trump, we will not negotiate a deal unless Lebanon is included. Now we see today when the Israelis are hitting Lebanon, it's clear the Israelis are almost daring Trump to say to Donald Trump, you signed this MOU, you claim you can't hit Lebanon, I dare you to do something. I dare you to try to rein us in as the Iranians are insisting that you do. And I think the fact that Israelis are doing it means the messaging that they're getting from Washington is that yes, the tide is turning, but there is room to ruin this deal. There is room to pressure Donald Trump. There is room in which we can scupper this ceasefire as we scuppered it before. And I think the danger now is that Donald Trump, who today, by the way, according to Reuters, came out and said that if the Iranians don't behave, there will be no deal. So almost as giving an opposite statement to what he said yesterday, raising a question mark over it. Because what does it mean that the Iranians don't behave when they've just signed an MOU? What does it mean if the Iranians don't behave when they've just given you an agreement that you asked for in order to cut your losses? That you're criticizing the Israelis and then putting the Iranians in the same basket. It means
they don't behave as in they might breach the MOU. I think that's what he means.
But the point is that for Donald Trump, I think that statement is sort of a, how can I throw something to the Israelis to appease them? This isn't Donald Trump bulldozing the Israelis, albeit that's what he did yesterday. This is Donald Trump saying, Israelis, please understand, I have my interest here at play. I need to consider myself. I need to consider America. And Huckabee and the Israelis and these others are coming out and saying, no, Mr. President, you need to listen to the Israelis. You can't be acting unilaterally like this. And now what we're going to see over the next 60 days is basically a wrestling match between the Israelis and the Americans, whereby Donald Trump has a decision to make. Does Donald Trump go and push America first? And does Donald Trump say, I need to impose this deal at the risk of the Israelis pulling levers domestically? AIPAC have already threatened via Twitter that they will use the senators that they've delivered to Congress in order to, in their words, scrutinize every single detail of this deal and of this MOU. They're basically saying to Donald Trump, we're going to mobilize the Congress against you. This is the Israeli First Lobby and AIPAC. Donald Trump is going to have a fight on his hands domestically within America because AIPAC still has those levers. Don't forget, Mario, that the Israel First Lobby spent more than $30 million to topple Thomas Massie, not because he did anything averse to America's interest, but because he began to question Israeli interest. Don't forget that they spent $14 million to topple Jamal Bowman in New York, because although he voted for the Iron Dome, he called for a ceasefire in Gaza. Don't forget that they spent $8 million to topple Cori Bush, because she also called for a ceasefire in Gaza. Israel has leverage within America by which an American president might pursue an America first interest, but the Israelis have in the past demonstrated they have the ability to supersede America's interest, which is why, if you remember Clinton's statement, I say remember as if like we were adults back then, but Clinton's statement is what he famously once said, who is the expletive superpower here? Who is the meaning Clinton was so frustrated that as a US president, he had said something, but Israel was mobilizing all of its lobby and all of its capabilities to defy the US president. And in an exasperation, not in a defiance, in an exasperation, Why can't I stop this Israeli pressure? Why can't I stop this Israeli influence? Donald Trump is going to have a very difficult battle now in reining in that Israel First lobby and in reining in the Israelis. Not only because Israel is opposed to it, but also because consider the position of the Arab states today who want a peace because the Americans were unable to deliver a defeat, or the Israelis were unable to inflict a defeat on Iran. But imagine you're sitting in Riyadh today or in Doha or in Abu Dhabi or any of these capitals, and now Iran has become a beast. That Iran now has been able to demonstrate that it's able to stand against a superpower. That Iran, which looked like it was weakening, which was licking its wounds after losing Syria, now sees itself as, hey, wait a minute, guys, I did it. Yes, Khamenei was killed. Yes, the other Ali Larijani was killed. But I came out on top. Look at how the world is saying that I'm the one who won. I am the superior in the region. Now, everybody, I have a new framework for how this region operates. And if you want to protect yourselves, you have to negotiate with me the framework. It's like, astaghfirullah, I don't want this analogy to be misinterpreted. But you know, there's that meme of a Voldemort where he goes, from now on, you listen, you put your faith in me. It's the Iranians saying that you can't trust the Americans anymore. They couldn't protect you. You put your faith in me now. Hormuz Strait, you put your faith in me. Defense, you put your faith in me. Politics and power, you put your faith in me. Diplomacy with America, you put your faith in me. And that's why I think this potentially could reorient the region. When J.D. Vance says, Mario, that $300 billion might be given to the Iranians, the Gulf states might pay it in order to rebuild Iran. Iran is an 80+ million population, a huge economy if sanctions are lifted. It has the natural resources to become such a beast in the region that could revive the Persian Empire of old. Iran is not the equivalent of its regional neighbors, and only Turkey perhaps can compare to it, or Egypt at least if it ever fixed this economy, but it can become a genuine power. Now, if Donald Trump turns around and says that I actually like the Iranians, I have a newfound respect for them, they managed to hold their ground, they managed to fight, and you know, the way he said about the Houthis, or the way he says about Ahmed al-Shara, he's a strong man, handsome man, I like him, etc. It's not far-fetched that a maverick like Donald Trump says, you know what, I'm going to do a lasting peace in the region, lift those sanctions. He'll send Eric Trump and he'll send Jared Kushner to make some deals, economic deals. The Iranians give some concessions here and there. The Iranian economy starts improving. And now suddenly you have the UAE, Saudis, Qataris, Kuwaitis, Bahrainis, all of them start to panic because Iran still has designs on the region that the Americans are no longer interested in containing. My point in mentioning this is going back to the idea of who will ruin the deal. It's not only the Israelis who will lobby Trump about the details of the deal. It's also the Gulf states who will be lobbying about the details of the deal. Yeah. It's also Turkey, which is concerned about Iranian expansion, so it's pushing into northern Iraq. It's also Turkey, which is concerned about Syria and what it might mean if Hezbollah gets stronger in Lebanon and the like. And I think that for Donald Trump, just to finish on this point, Mario, I know I've gone on a bit on this one, to show you the extent to which Trump is trying to balance between Israel and Iran now. Yesterday, he suggested that Syria go into Lebanon to deal with the Hezbollah problem, which is extraordinary. But it also answers an important question, which is why Ahmed al-Shara declined the invitation to go to Washington last month. Trump had given an invitation. Everybody was surprised that Ahmed al-Shara had declined it. And there were rumors at the time.
Did he give a reason?
He declined, saying that he had some domestic issues like to handle.
Okay.
But at the time, the rumor mill was that the reason he was being summoned to Washington was Trump was going to propose to him that he launches a military campaign against Hezbollah in Lebanon. The reason Ahmed al-Shara cannot go into Lebanon is for two reasons. The first, he cannot be seen as somebody who came by revolution in Syria to be on the side of the Israelis doing a service for the Israeli by getting rid of Hezbollah. That is political suicide for him. But the second point, Mario, and let's whisper this quietly, is that let's suppose Hezbollah stops being a threat to the Israelis. Who do the Israelis turn their guns to next? They turn against Ahmed al-Shara is quietly and this is the irony, because Hezbollah broke his back twice during, when he was trying to conquer Assad. Ahmed al-Shara is praying that Hezbollah doesn't get strong, but it doesn't get defeated, because it means the Israelis will then focus everything on Syria as well. My point is, for Trump even to suggest that Syria will handle Hezbollah means that Trump is telling the Israelis, I don't like your way of doing things. We need an alternative way. You can't keep having it your way. And I think this deal, if it ever materializes, will be a wrestling match. Israel will try to ensure it can go back to war. Trump will try to ensure that it is peace. That Trump will try to be aware that Israel doesn't squeeze him domestically inside America. And the question is, can Trump survive that pressure domestically in America? Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying Epstein files are suddenly going to appear and suddenly Trump is going to be in the media. What I'm saying is that Israel historically, even without the Epstein files, always has this ability to squeeze US presidents, whether it's Obama, whether it's Bush, whether it's Clinton, whether it's, it has this knack for it. That's the reality of it. I wouldn't, if I was a betting man, and betting is haram, but if I was a betting man, I wouldn't put all my chips yet on peace or on this deal, because Israel can still ruin it. And if Israel ruins it, America does, or Trump has this ability to just flip 180. And I promise this final point, Amaria, sorry. Remember the Gaza Board of Peace. So Trump signed that Gaza Board of Peace and then got bored of it. It's done nothing. It hasn't, the details have just vanished, and Israel every now and then is hitting, Palestine and trying to renegotiate the deal. The fear is that this MOU, we'll be talking about this MOU for longer than 60 days, because Trump says, well, I achieved my aim domestically. I managed to get, the ceasefire or whatever it is, peace, Hormuz Strait is starting to flow again. I don't need to focus on the details. And that ambiguity is what Israel is looking for. So it remains to be seen. I will say that the fact that it's Donald Trump in the presidency is what causes the uncertainty. Because Trump is such a maverick, because it's like Mu'in Rabbani. I don't know if you've ever had him on your show. He's a fantastic analyst. Mu'in Rabbani, once somebody asked him, how do we make sense of Trump's policy? And he replied and he said, Trump's policy is based on the last person that he spoke to. The idea being is that you don't know what Trump is going to do tomorrow. And I think that while that lends a sense of despair, it also lends a sense of optimism, because now the Israelis are saying, how Trump lost Israel, but I think it's how Israel lost Trump. I think they went too far, and Trump now is lashing out. And in my humble opinion, Trump should be encouraged in this pursuit of peace. I see sometimes some of my friends, they say, don't say Trump lost. Because if you say Trump lost, he might go back to war. Just give it to him. Just massage the ego. Tell him, oh, great president, what you've done is fantastic. You're putting America first. You're negotiating this peace, and it's a peace that everybody wants. And I'm hoping that those advocates for peace prevail over the Israeli advocates for war.
And that's it. Like, America want to make a deal with Iran because what's happening to the global economy. The Zionists in Israel do not want that, because they want greater Israel. Whenever there's a ceasefire announced, they call it an Israeli ceasefire. That means you stop attacking, but we keep bombing. Trump said no more bombs in Lebanon, so they started burning villages down instead. Like, people can see what's happening now. It's mad, like. And it's like, unfortunately, the Zionists run the show. Look at Section 622. What's going to be passed? It's in the Senate this week. The Israeli intelligence, Mossad, and the CIA are going to be combined. They're going to have a banking reference number, and they're going to be able to draw from the defense budget. And no future presidents will be able to stop it. It's being passed in law, and no one's talking about it. Mainstream media certainly isn't talking about it. But Trump's obviously, he knows this is no good for the West. But when you look at the Zionists and Mossad, look at Huckabee, Levin, Ben Shapiro, crying their eyes out. They're meant to be Americans. This is bad. If this continues, it's bad for America. It shows you where their loyalties lie. But you can't point that out, or you're an anti-Semite. That slur just it's lost its, it doesn't work anymore, like. Because, and then Trump on the other hand will be thinking, well, Mossad, even the CIA going back to Afghanistan, they didn't do assassinations. That wasn't classed as being legal. It was a war crime. That Arachi, I love him, the negotiator for Iran. He seems like a brilliant man. But I fear for him, because you know what Israel will do? They'll just assassinate the negotiators. That's their MO. That's what they've done for decades. But I thought that was an important rant to get out there. In respect to Sami Hamdi, apologies, and Mario. Go and subscribe to his channel. He always has the best guests on, but that's it.